Hello, this is Jeff Disher of OpenAutonomy, and I'm just going to do sort of a quick walkthrough of how to kind of get up and started when you're given an invite code to use OpenAutonomy. Now this will apply whether you got the invite code because of something like someone you know is using it and they sent you a code, or because you filled out one of the new user surveys or something like that. So in all cases, they kind of start the same. You end up with an invite code and you need to go start. So just from the OpenAutonomy homepage here, if I go to login, so this is where you'll create a new user account and where you normally log in. So I'll just call this Firefox test user and say create new user once you've got that all typed in. So now it decides that that is a valid code, so I'm allowed to create a new user, and it's saying that this server is managed by OpenAutonomy Incorporated as the kind of owning user. And there's of course things you have to look at here, the terms of service and privacy policy. And this is the usual sort of legal concerns that you'd normally go through with creating any account on any sort of online service. And so you need to enter the code that's shown in the in this CAPTCHA, which of course just to make sure you're not a machine, and click that you agree to the terms of service. So this now goes through and creates your application and all the corresponding applications that you need. And so now we're inside the actual identity that I've just created. So this is sort of the dashboard of your account on OpenAutonomy. So I'll just clear this because all these applications have sort of a little getting started explanation about what they are, but you can clear that once you've addressed it. So this kind of shows you all the applications that are part of the default installation. User details talks about what you'll actually look like, what your username is in terms of that when other people refer to you, what your user pick is, all those sorts of personal details that also go into things like searching. There's the messaging system, which is kind of like an email analog idea for this. So it's a way of sending kind of long form conversations between people. And there's social networking, which is for being able to post status updates, pictures, things like that, and see all that information that's being shared by everyone who you're watching. And simple storage, which is sort of your cloud storage system, basically your hard drive in the sky, so to speak, where you can store all sorts of data there of any kind of form that you want. The only other thing I wanted to point out relating to the applications that are listed here is you can see there's this other section at the bottom, this generate PreTrust application token. Now this is something that most users won't need, but if you're doing something like using a native application like OpenAutonomy synchronization, for example, to do automated file backups, this is what you'd use to actually create the token that you would give it to log in, because you don't want to ever give any other application other than the basic login form on the site your username and password, because you can never be sure that anyone's actually forwarding them on. This is a big concern with all software these days. Anything like this that's back-ending on an online service could be extracting that data from you. So the tokens exist so you don't have to do that. But for most users, it's not an issue. The other thing that's really important to be able to see here is this list of trusted users. Now, trusted users are what on other systems would often be called your friend list, or the people you're following, or something like that. This is the list of users which can see your trusted social networking posts, your trusted files in storage, and also the user list that you'll be consulting when you're looking at your social networking system. So you can remove anyone from this just by clicking the red X here, and it doesn't really. The thing that's important to realize in OpenAutonomy is that all of these connections are one way. So in order to have someone in your trusted list, they don't also have to agree to have you in theirs. It's up to everyone individually. So just to show how you'd add someone is, say I wanted to look for a new user to add to that list. I can look here and this will show me the applications and other activity on the server. So say I was interested in looking at one of these. I could do something like add CBC. And this is basically just a pseudo user which will produce information from the cbc.ca website. So if I say start trusting this user, then if I go back here, you can see that they've been added to my trusted list. And of course, I can easily just remove that as well. Another issue related to trusted users, because this is just having one list of all your users, but say you wanted to have some more specific ways of describing the different groups of people and their permissions in terms of how they interact with you. So you might have things like coworkers or family or friends, and you don't want them all to be able to see all the same thing. They're all kind of different groups. Well, you can create what's called a trust group. So I'll just create one called, say, group 1. And now you can delete these at any time by clicking here, but these groups that have been created will show up in your other applications anywhere where you might want to set some sort of permissions, like for files or for a post you're making or something like that. And I can manage who's in the group. If I click on it, and it shows who's actually in the group and not in. Right now I just created this group, so no one's in it. So say I wanted to add OpenAutonomy to it. So now there's this one user in the group and one that isn't. And if I go back to my identity, you can see that this has been updated. So that's how you can actually come up with more complex arrangements of different users in order to kind of allow them to each remain isolated from each other. And I can get rid of that group because I'm done with that. Something else here, which is right under this, you can see, is the Manage Account page. Now this, if you click here, is how you change your options relating to how your account actually works. So for example, changing password, setting an email address, and changing security questions. Also, if you wanted to delete your identity, you'd delete it here. However, you need to delete all your applications first. That's how it sort of confirms that for you. And if you've been a user for a while, you'll actually have invites that you can give out to new users. Here it says it's 0 because I just created the account. Now, the most important part here is you can use your email address, and that will allow you to do two things. One, you can actually use your email address to log in going forward. That way you don't need to worry about having someone get access to your password, because using email login will actually invalidate your password. So it'll become the only way you can log in. So it's a good way of locking things down if you trust your email system and use it all the time. Also, if you've set an email address here, note, setting it doesn't invalidate the password you were using, but if you do use it to log in, it will invalidate your password. But if you just set your email address, it'll also use it when sending you notifications because of different things that are changing in your identity. And I'll get onto that in a moment. So that's kind of the most important issue here, is if you want to be able to get notifications, you'll need to set an email address, and it'll send you a confirmation email to make sure you're not just trying to spam someone. So if I go back to the identity here, you can see there's normally all the applications they don't have any status set. It just says they were added. Now this is where an application might want to tell you something's happened. Like in social networking, maybe it'll tell you that you've got a notification that someone responded to something you wrote. Or in messaging, you've got pending messages. Or storage, that you've uploaded a file and now there's only a certain amount of space left. And these will normally, sometimes these will go to your email if you've registered that, but for the most part they just update the status here. So that way, because a lot of them update frequently, you don't want to get notifications all the time. Now further than that, you can actually have fine-grained control over which applications are allowed to do that. So if you go to Advanced, here you can change the name of an application just for your own purposes. It'll also show up having a different name when other applications try and see it, which can be useful for other things. There's a trust level that you're giving it. For the most part, you always want your applications to be maximum trust. Minimum trust is used for applications you've created which you don't necessarily trust to access your other applications. And none, this is how new applications normally start out. The original set that you get when you first register are all set to max because they're all sort of part of the default installation. And this is the other option, which is important to be able to have fine-grained control over the system. And that's the email notify option. If you've set an email address and this option is checked, and by default they are, then it means that when important status updates or complex status updates come through, you'll be notified via email that this happened. And this is common in cases such as the messaging system or social networking. Many of the other applications don't unless they decide that it's something you really need to know about right now. So any of the changes there you can save. Forcing revalidation is not usually important for these applications that are local, but it can be important for things like applications that are using this, that you're using for native applications, if you think someone stole it, for example. And at any time you can delete these apps. But for the core set, that's not recommended because as they are, they're sort of the baseline of what you'd need to do most things anyway. So that's kind of a quick tutorial of just the basics of here's sort of your landing page once you first get a new identity and what you can do with that.